Story 1.
This is something you've all been demanding, practically begging for a long time now. It took some searching, but I've finally unearthed 3 tales centered around the eerie backdrop of school lockdowns. It began like any other dull Friday afternoon in calculus, that last stretch before spring break. With the 7th period dragging on, you could sense everyone's anticipation. The promise of freedom was only a bell away. Unlike others, our class wasn't bracing for a test that day, and our easygoing teacher took it upon himself to lighten the mood with a trivia game on sparkle.com. He was known for being cool like that. We were halfway through a quiz about brand logos. I even remember the exact moment because the answer my friend gave was Adidas, when suddenly the dean's voice broke over the loudspeaker, laced with an urgency that made everyone freeze. This was no drill, he announced, his words tight with alarm. Go into lockdown immediately. A shiver ran down my spine, a real chill, as our typically relaxed teacher snapped into action. He quickly doused the lights and gathered us to the back of the room, where we crouched, unnervingly still. We sat there in silence, and then something strange happened. The familiar hum of electricity coming from a panel at the back of the room just stopped. It seemed the entire building had gone dark, which only deepened our growing dread. We exchanged glances, each of us trying to mask our fear, but we knew this wasn't a drill. Minutes ticked by, steeped in tension, when we heard it, a man's voice echoing down the hallway, a furious, blood-chilling scream. 2 girls in our class started to cry softly, their quiet sobs only intensifying the fear that gripped us all. The screaming drew closer, and with it came a brutal pounding against the lockers as the man's voice rang out, "I'll kill every last one of you." In that instant, I was paralyzed by sheer terror, and my teacher signaled for quiet. We sat there, our eyes darting to one another, each of us gauging the other's reactions. Then, with no warning, the banging shifted from the lockers to our classroom door. The assault was unrelenting, each blow on the door accompanied by the man's terrifying shrieks. "Open up!" One of the crying girls finally broke down, letting out a terrified wail that seemed to embolden him. The pounding intensified, each second stretching into what felt like an endless nightmare, until finally his footsteps began to fade as he stumbled down the hall, his voice slowly dwindling into the distance. 10 agonizing minutes passed, each second feeling like a year, before the dean's voice returned to the loudspeaker, shaky but composed. He explained that a disturbed individual had managed to slip into the building, assaulting the woman at the front desk and leaving her fleeing outside in terror. No one could confirm if he was armed. This was before the days of security cameras or a fully secure campus, so the building was far more vulnerable to incidents like these. The staff had searched every corridor and classroom, but found no trace of the intruder. We were told to resume class, though all doors were to remain locked, and nobody was to leave under any circumstances. What truly disturbed us, however, was what surfaced afterward. Late that night, one of the janitors discovered the same man curled up, asleep, in a storage closet at the far end of the building. Whispers around the school hinted that protruding from his pocket was a .44 Magnum. The janitor might have made some small mistake that woke him, leaving the door ajar, perhaps, and by the time the authorities arrived, he had vanished. As far as I know, to this day, none of us have learned if he was ever caught. I'd like to believe he's somewhere safe, finally receiving the help he so desperately needs.
Story 2.
My school has 2 separate lunch periods. First lunch is set aside for all the 6th graders and part of the 7th grade, while the second lunch serves the rest of the 7th graders and all of 8th grade. The lockdown took place in early October, on a dreary, rain-soaked day. It was during that first lunch when I suddenly heard 4 loud bangs. At first, I dismissed them as thunder rolling in with the storm, but a ripple of panic swept through the cafeteria. Students erupted into screams, though I chalked it up to everyone just overreacting, until campus security rushed in, their voices sharp and insistent, herding everyone toward the multi-purpose room. Kids in the lunch line had to ditch their trays and hurry inside. My friends and I moved with the crowd, swept into a swarm of confused and anxious students. The multi-purpose room was huge, with one entire wall made of glass that usually offered a view of the school grounds. But as we filed in, campus security officers were quickly drawing curtains over the windows, blocking out the outside world, and several adults were posted at each exit. My friend Eric, as curious as the rest of us, approached one of the teachers, hoping for answers. When he returned, his face was pale as he said, "You know those houses right across from TMS?" "Yeah," I replied, feeling a knot start to tighten in my stomach. "Well," Eric went on, his voice dropping to a whisper. "There's this unstable guy who's barricaded himself inside his house, and he's threatening to kill himself and take down any cops who try to get him out. Earlier, he was wandering around near the school, watching us in this creepy way." Eric's voice wavered as he continued. "Turns out he's a registered sex offender, too." A shiver went through our group. The situation felt surreal, and we were stuck in that multi-purpose room for what felt like ages. An entire hour passed, forcing us to miss 2 periods. At last, they allowed us to return to our classes, but only after leading us out one by one under the careful watch of security. Later, I found out that this man actually lived next door to my friend Brandy. She told me a story from the Halloween before, when she'd seen him standing at his window, slicing his arm open and using his own blood to scrawl across the glass, "Don't come here or I'll kill you." At the time, Brandy and the others thought it was just some twisted Halloween prank. But after this disturbing incident, we understood the truth. That man was deeply disturbed, and we were all grateful that he never got close to us.
Story 3.
I'm 22, newly graduated, and recently started working at my old high school as a computer intern, stationed in the school's basement. This basement is a maze of disorganized cables, old equipment, and clutter. But tucked in one corner is a surprisingly nice 3-person office. It's got big desks for each of us, a couple of mini fridges, a flat-screen TV, and, perhaps best of all, cool air conditioning, something the rest of the school can only dream of. This room also houses the school's servers and all kinds of technical gear. I owe this job to my former computer teachers, who all went to bat for me to secure this position. They weren't just teachers. They'd become real friends. Things were going smoothly until a few weeks back when something strange happened. My 2 office mates, Dave and Gary, were out at the time handling work upstairs. I was alone munching on a sandwich during my lunch break when my phone rang. It was one of the front office staff, her voice urgent, telling me the school was on lockdown because an intruder, potentially armed, had gotten inside. There wasn't much I could do in that windowless basement, and to make matters worse, our office didn't have an actual door, just an open entryway, and the basement door itself had no functioning lock. For whatever small protection it offered, I turned off the lights, dimmed my computer, and texted Dave and Gary, but no response came. I sat there in the dark, trying to pass the time by scrolling through games on my phone, waiting for a signal that it was safe. But 20 minutes passed in eerie silence. I couldn't hear a thing from upstairs and wasn't supposed to make calls until the all-clear was given. Then, out of nowhere, the basement door creaked open, the sound reverberating through the empty space, right into my office. I froze, my heart pounding, wondering if it was Dave or Gary. Then footsteps echoed on the stairs, coming closer. My gut twisted with dread. Instinctively, I pushed back my chair and slid under my desk, trying to keep still, my breath shallow. Whoever it was entered the office but didn't switch on the lights. An unbearable silence filled the air. I felt like even the smallest noise would give me away. Then my phone betrayed me with a loud ding. A new text. In that instant, I felt like my heart stopped. The footsteps drew nearer, slow and deliberate. Desperate, I crawled out from under the desk, pleading, "Please, don't hurt me." A hand grabbed my arm, pulling me up. I looked up to see a man in a red plaid shirt, jeans, and a dark red cap. "It's okay," he whispered, as if trying to reassure me. "I'm hiding down here with you. What's going on up there?" I kept my voice low, asking him who he was, and he gave a vague story about coming to pick up his son, only to be told by a teacher to find cover. As he spoke, I glanced at my phone. The text was from Dave. It read, "Dude, it's insane. Some guy with a gun just shot Mr. Buckley. He's wearing a red shirt and a cap. Whatever you do, don't come upstairs." I was on the verge of reading the message out loud when it hit me. I lifted my eyes to meet the man's, feeling a wave of nausea and dread. He caught on to my look and froze. Acting on pure instinct, I turned and bolted for the stairs. A gunshot rang out, echoing through the basement, the bullet striking something metal behind me, but by sheer luck, it missed. I scrambled upstairs, bursting into the light where the police were waiting at every exit. They intercepted him the second he stepped out. Later, we learned that Mr. Buckley survived the gunshot, though the reason for this attack was never fully disclosed. Some rumored grudge or unresolved grievance had apparently driven the man to such violence. Yet whatever the cause, it hardly justified his terrifying actions. And I know that the sound of that gunshot in the dark basement will haunt me for a long time to come.
Thank you for watching this episode of Scary Stories. I hope you gave this video a like. Subscribe to my channel and watch more horror stories. Click on the next video on your screen.